welcome to the program today, and we have really a very special guest. I'm delighted. In fact, we've been able to make Skype connection. I love this new technology. It's wonderful. And all the way from Austin, Texas this morning, we have Andrea Dilley with us, and she is the author of a powerful memoir, Faith and Other Flat Tires. Perhaps you've read some of her other articles, and she gets involved in producing documentaries, and she's got quite a story to tell. Sometimes doubt about God and about church can lead you right to God. And Andrea, you're looking great. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show, Perry.
How's the weather in Austin this morning? I see some sunshine through your window there.
Yeah, that's an illusion. It's actually kind of overcast.
Oh.
But I don't mind that. I'm from the Northwest, Perry. I come from your part of the country, so overcast days are very homey to me. They're very familiar.
Wonderful. You know, your story is fascinating, and I'm not sure quite how to get involved in this. But first of all, tell us about your upbringing, because you're the daughter of medical missionaries. Is that correct?
That's correct. My parents were what I would call Christian hippies. Back in the 70s, they were very involved in the hippie movement, but from within Christian community, and were very interested in social justice, humanitarian causes, that kind of thing. So they signed up with the Quakers and spent 6 years as medical missionaries in a rural part of Western Kenya. So those are my first memories. I had absolutely no memories of America when we moved. I was about 15 months, and I was about 7 when we came back. So they were really formative years for me. Wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Tell us about your journey. How did you come about this, and what happened to you?
Well, Perry, the story of what I tell in the book, I grew up in the church. I had this wonderful Christian upbringing. A lot of people have stories, or I should say some people have stories where they grow up in dysfunctional church environments, dysfunctional homes. That wasn't my story. I actually grew up in a wonderful Christian community, a healthy community. But when I was, in my kind of young adult years going off to college, I really started to struggle with faith and had a crisis of faith in my early 20s and ended up leaving behind all of the Christian tradition that I had been raised with, all of the beliefs, everything. I left the church for about 2 years and really struggled with where I was spiritually. Did basically kind of the prodigal son story in terms of going off and living a secular lifestyle, and then eventually coming back to the church and realizing that, in fact, I did believe in God. I did want to be part of Christian community. So that's kind of a flyover of what story I tell in the book. Yeah.
You know, sometimes they call this lockbox. Have you heard that expression where young people such as yourself, they grow up in a Christian home, they kind of lock it away and they drift from it, but it's not that they stop believing. They just get confused, I guess. It's still there, but it's all locked up, and then somewhere along the line, God opens the door again.
Absolutely. That's very true of my story, Perry. In fact, I actually say that in one chapter of the book, that even when I had left the church, even when I was at a distance from Christian community and kind of had separated myself from anything affiliated with Christianity, still buried in my heart were, beliefs. My faith was still there. I had just kind of stuffed it away into a corner of my heart, but it was still there. I think God was still drawing me back to himself, back to faith, back to Christian community, and that happened over a period of years, and I tell that story of return as well as departure in the book.
I think you're speaking volumes to not only parents, but a lot of young people that perhaps have experienced this. What was it? Could you look back and say, what was it that began to create the doubt? Was it the atmosphere that you were in school, or what was it that created the doubt?
That's a great question, Perry. I know, as you said, that there are so many parents out there that have, young adult children who are struggling going off to college. College is a tough time. Boy, you can end up, even in a Christian university, you can end up in a place that doesn't necessarily support faith. You don't get faith, reason integration. You're in a space where you're really vulnerable. You're starting to ask a lot of questions. Who am I? What do I believe? And a lot of young people, as you know, end up leaving the church either during college or after college. And I think for that reason, my story is very apropos. I think a lot of parents can learn a lot from it. Young people hopefully can resonate with it. But to answer your question, there were three things I would say. I was really struggling with some questions about faith. I was frustrated with the church. I was frustrated with my sense of God's absence. Where is God when it hurts? I was frustrated with trying to make sense of suffering. How can I believe in a loving God when I see all this suffering around me? So there was an intellectual component to it, but there was also a cultural component to it. I was around, friends and peers who were kind of drawing me into a different cultural experience, hanging out in bars and doing the sorts of things that we associate with secular lifestyle. And I moved into that. I was very aware of what I was doing and wanted to kind of explore an alternative worldview. Think of it like this, eating a turkey sandwich every day for lunch, you get tired of it. You want to say, what else is out there? What else can I have for lunch? And I think young people feel that, and I felt that. I wanted to say, what else is out there? What else can I experience?
Part of this is so many parents are sending their children off to school, and they may be into a Christian environment. They're going, I hear these stories, and I'm concerned. Maybe my child, even though we've raised them in the great atmosphere and they've done all the right things, the appetite to try something new is almost unquenchable at times. And that's where the journey away begins, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I resonate with those concerns. I'm not a parent of a teenager going off to college, but I just have had so many conversations with people who have concerns along those lines. And I would just encourage them, take the decision seriously in terms of where you send your kid to college. That is significant. But also know that, as you said, doubting, it's kind of a natural process. It's part of coming of age. It's part of figuring out your beliefs. And in that sense, I would encourage parents to walk with their kids, be present, affirm their search, listen to them, challenge them, but try not to react. I was fortunate enough to have parents who they had concerns. I know they had major concerns about the fact that I was struggling with faith, but they listened to me. My dad would literally spend hours with me sitting on the couch, listening to my questions, talking with me, listening to me, affirming me. And I would encourage other parents to do the same thing. Walk with your kids, journey with them in that experience.
I think that's a big part of this equation because so many parents would react differently. They would react with almost spiritual intimidation.
Sure, absolutely. And that response makes sense. I have a daughter now that's almost 3, and I'm projecting forward into the future thinking, gosh, what would I do if my own kid looked like she was losing her faith? It'd be really hard. I remember when I was in college overhearing a conversation between my parents, and my mother turned to my father and said, why are we spending so much money to watch our daughter lose her faith? She was referring to, their support of me in college, but she had a really hard time with it. But they were still kind of hands off. And I think actually that helped me in the sense that if they had pushed me too much, if they had reacted to my spiritual struggle, I actually think I would have moved further away than I already did.
Did you interview your parents after this?
Did I interview them? You mean in terms of kind of getting a sense of their experience?
Yeah.
Sure enough. I had lots of conversations with them about it. And my mom in particular was very clear in saying that it was tough for her. My dad was a little bit more sympathetic only because he had gone through what he called a skeptic phase when he was in college. He went through the exact same thing that a lot of young people do. He was reading literature by Hermann Hesse and just exploring philosophy and asking critical, skeptical questions about the faith. So he was a little bit more sympathetic and I think knew that I would probably come back around. Nothing was guaranteed, obviously, but I think faith at its best can stand.
Okay, Andrea, hold on just for a second. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back. We're talking to Andrea Dilley today, and fascinating read. Get a copy. Faith and Other Flat Tires. Boy, it pretty much says it all. And there's a picture of the book there on the screen, and we got some more questions for her when we come back.
On the run? Take the Dove TV with you. Now streaming 24/7 to your iPhone. See it at thedove.us.
back, and we're with Andrea Dilley today. And this topic, Andrea, she's with us today via Skype from her home in Austin, Texas, and she's authored a book, Faith in Other Flat Tires. And here at the Dove Radio and TV, Andrea, we get a lot of calls and emails and letters and drop-ins. And I got to tell you that the topic that you're sharing with us today is probably one of the big ones that we hear that people are struggling with. A child that has wandered away, parents that are trying to figure out what to do. I've often asked the question, what happens to a child? They're raised in a beautiful home, and we send them out the door one day, and we come back, and the enemy's living upstairs. They're locked in and shut down. What happened? Yours happened a little bit later, the college years, and I think a lot of parents really fear that, even though if they're going to a Christian college, that atmosphere, as you know, can be quite inducing, and this is what maybe has happened to you. A couple things that you mentioned previously. Let me ask you this, first of all. Did your doubt ever turn to despair?
That's a great question, Perry. I would say there were moments of despair, and those come out in the book. I had moments when after I had left the church, I had separated myself from community. I was churchless, lonely, and I did experience, moments of despair. But in terms of my doubt turning into despair, I would actually say the opposite, Perry, and it sounds counterintuitive, but my doubt in some ways was actually part of my longing for God. Frederick Buechner says, faith is homesickness. C.S. Lewis called it, Sehnsucht, longing for this far-off country. And I think for me, doubt was actually something that was born out of disappointment with the way things were. And my disappointment with the way things were was actually part of longing for something better, longing for God, that imprint, the imago Dei in me. So if you kind of follow that trail, my doubt was actually part of my longing for God. And in that sense, it was something that turned me back to God rather than to despair.
The whole atmosphere of higher education and in the world of academics is to create the environment for what they call critical thinking. You begin to question a lot of things. Obviously, you begin to question your faith. You came up with the fact that you were frustrated that God would allow bad things to happen to good people, or that there would be such suffering in the world. How did you finally process that?
That's a great question, Perry. Yeah, I really had some profound experiences, both as a young person growing up and as a young adult, working in refugee camps, working with welfare families. One experience in particular, working at in some slums in Nairobi, was really significant for me. I just had this moment of how is this possible? How do I believe? And that was very pivotal for me in leaving the church. But there were a couple things, Perry, that helped me sort through that problem. I don't think there's a definitive answer. I think suffering is something that's very complex. But my first epiphany, if you want to call it that, had to do with the problem of good, the opposite problem. How do I make sense of all the goodness and beauty in the world? If I kind of push back against the darkness and I react against the injustice and the suffering and the pain, I also have to ask that counter question. Where does the goodness come from? And I think if you're, for me, even if you're just a theist, that question leads back to God. So that was one aspect of it in terms of kind of trying to make sense of the problem of suffering. And the other answer, Perry, is that other worldviews were dissatisfying to me. The Buddhist worldview says suffering is just displacement of desire. The naturalist worldview says we're just animals competing for space and resources. There is no such thing as injustice. You can't even call something evil. So in that sense, coming back to the church had as much to do with dissatisfaction with the alternatives, if that makes sense,
sure,
as it had to do with embracing Christianity itself. I just kind of realized, wow, Christianity is the only faith that actually takes suffering really seriously. Christ on the cross. I mean, there's so much of the Christian faith that is wrapped up in issues and questions of suffering, and we still might have unanswered questions, and I think that's okay, and that's part of what I come to in the book.
What happened? At what point did you begin to turn this thing around? Because I think as you begin to leave the faith and your journey in this world of unknown, and then you wake up and say, the faith was the right way, you kind of have one foot in it and one foot out of it, and you kind of convince yourself of the lie, I can balance this for a while, you know. It's kind of like one foot on the boat and one foot on the dock. Sooner or later it drifts apart and you got to make a jump. And you jumped into the world for a while, but it didn't add up. You began to, was it a head thing? Was it a heart thing? At what point did it go from your head to your heart?
It's a great question, Perry. Yeah, as I said, I think part of my return to the church had to do with my dissatisfaction with churchlessness, with faithlessness. I had to leave the church to find the church. And that's not true of everyone. But, you know, in living outside of the church, living outside of Christian community, I was literally hanging out in bars with people who didn't talk about God, let alone faith, let alone the Christian faith. All of that was it was miles from my mind. And I think after a while, I realized, wait a second, these questions matter to me. Even questions, existential questions, spiritual questions. I think I actually want to be in community where I can ask these questions, where I can struggle with questions of faith. And in that sense, again, my dissatisfaction had everything to do with my return to church. Some people have what I would call kind of a positive reconversion. Mm-hmm. Mine was kind of a negative reconversion in the sense that I was just so disillusioned with the alternative and living in this secular lifestyle and realizing, wait, my heart feels empty. I want to be back in the space of the sanctuary. I want to be back inside faith community that can help me think through my questions and my doubts.
Two things here before we run out of time. One is, I guess the rudimentary of faith and church became boring. Is that what happened? Or at least it became rudimentary? It was the same old thing all the time?
You mean in terms of kind of my experience of church? Is that what you're...
Yeah, before you drifted, yeah.
Sure, in part, yeah. As I said, you know, eating a turkey sandwich every day, you kind of get a little bored. you get a little antsy. You want to get out and figure out what else is out there to experience. So yeah, that was definitely part of my departure too. Was just kind of
the other question, Andrea, is the danger of what you did, because what I don't want people to do is say, yeah, I can run out and flirt with this thing for a couple of years and come back. I mean, you know, if I was the devil, that's what I'd be saying to a lot of people right now. How dangerous was it when you were out there?
It's a great question, Perry. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful issue to bring up because, again, you know, I was protected in some ways from some of the more severe experiences that people have in terms of, you know, doing high-end drugs, sleeping around, those kinds of things, getting pregnant out of wedlock. I didn't have those kinds of experiences. I had what I would call sort of mild rebellion, but it was still rebellion and it was still exploration on my part. But absolutely, it's a risk. You have to be careful. Guard your heart.
Well, Andrea, thank you. What a delight. Can we get you back?
Absolutely. I would love it.
This is absolutely fascinating, and I can't help but think your book's going to minister to thousands. And let me encourage people, if you have a wayward student in your home, you're a parent and you're worrying about this issue, there's much to learn from Faith and Other Flat Tires by Andrea Dilley. Let me encourage you to get a copy of the book at the bookstores. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online. And let this be a tremendous resource for you and your student in your life. Andrea, thank you. God bless you. Great to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me, Perry. It was wonderful.
Okay, we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye. All right, we'll be right back.
On the run? Take the Dove TV with you. Now streaming 24/7 to your iPhone. See it at thedove.us.
All right, we've made a big studio switch, and we're delighted to have in the studio. In fact, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, and I am delighted to have with us today Brad Russell. He's the CEO and Executive Director of the Rogue Valley Family YMCA, and he is the guy that's got a big plate full of things to do and activities going on. And Brad, what a delight to have you here finally.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you, man.
Appreciate it.
I want to talk about what you're doing down there at the YMCA, but also you have also taken on a big task by taking over the Pear Blossom runs.
Yes, we feel very fortunate to be blessed by Jerry and Zella Schwartzley, who have organized that race for 35 years and we were doing the fun run for 5 years. And so this year they said, how about the 5K and the 10 miles? So our board of directors said, okay, we're going to give that a go.
All right, so this is a big thing for you. Of course, the Pear Blossom is always a culmination of so many things going on in the Valley. It's also the culmination of your fun drive.
Yeah, it is.
I want to get into that. But those of you who are runners, now I have run the Pear Blossom twice and lived to tell about it. I probably should get the T-shirt. I survived the Pear Blossom.
Yes.
I admire those who do it, and it's a fun thing to do. We got several of our staff that are in training now, getting ready to do it. So it should be fun.
Thank you so much.
But what's this mean to you? It's a lot of manpower, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm again so thankful for all the work of Jerry and Zella and the 400 volunteers that make that whole event happen. Wow. Yeah. So everything from the folks who set up the race the day before with packet pickup and thousands of runners coming and getting their race bibs to the actual morning of the race, real early, getting down there, setting up the fencing and the booths and tables, and then when the gun fires for the runners to begin, 2,000 people in the 5K race, 2,000 in the 10-mile race, and then the fun run has 2,000 kids and families out there. So 6,000 runners, thousands of spectators. It's a great way to kick off the whole Pear Blossom Festival weekend.
You can tell it's coming because there's runners all over the place.
Yeah, that's right.
They're in training out there. I mean, it's freezing cold, and they're out there going for it. And I think, this is great. So what do they do if they haven't signed up yet? What do they do?
They can just go to the website, pearblossomrun.com, or they can just stop in at the YMCA or the Chamber of Commerce or most places around town, pick up a registration form. I'm happy to mail one to them so they can get signed up for the race.
All right, let me tell you, it's a great thing to do. Even if it's the fun run, go for it. It's it's just a hoot. And but you've been now working on a lot of things down there at the YMCA, and you've got a big job. You guys do a great job serving people. I want to say thank you for what you do down there.
Appreciate it. I don't
know how many people go through your facility, but it's a ton.
Yeah, 5,000 members, 15,000 program participants, and I see my job as really supporting the 200 staff and 400 volunteers that work with all those kids and families every day. So I just try to praise and thank as many people as I can.
That's great. So what's your your financing thing doing this year? Your support system?
Yeah. So right now we're trying to raise $150,000. As we sit here, we're at $43,000 of that already.
Wow.
And that goes directly to kids and families who need some help getting them involved with YMCA programs. May it be childcare or swim lessons, youth sports. There's a wide variety of things that happen.
And how does that occur, Brad? How are you raising these funds?
Mostly it's individual donations, just you and I giving some money out of our wallets, and some business sponsorships. And so just a lot of little gifts add up to a big amount that we can help a lot of kids and families that are asking for help.
Well, I just want to say a lot of organizations out there, and we talk and we interview a lot of them, but you guys have been so faithful for so long doing what you do.
Thanks. The YMCA here in Medford has been going strong for 60 years, and the YMCA in America for 160 years. So I do like to brag a little bit about the YMCA inventing basketball, volleyball, group swimming lessons, and so on.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people just use your facilities to work out at, and why not?
Sure. And we're getting actually more folks that are being referred from, say, the doctor or physical therapist, and they're just needing to continue a exercise plan and just to improve their health, and we want to be a part of that.
All right, so if people want to support you, then go online, come by, whatever. Your goal is $150,000. You're at 43, and does this now kind of climax at the Pear Blossom?
It does, and so then those race entries and sponsorships with the run will be our finale, and hopefully that'll push us over the 150 mark.
Well, I'd like to see just all of Jackson County sign up for the fun run. How's that?
Yeah, that would be great. All those runners get a #1 bib.
There you go. I think I could do that now with my back and knee. But what's really fun? I've seen that in the years. Families out there, even pushing babies around in baby carts and carriages and things. And
yeah, we try to get the whole family out there, just walking, being together, being healthy.
Brad Russell with us today. And again, just as a little bit of a recap here, this year, the Rogue Valley YMCA has taken over all the runs for the Pear Blossom, and this is a great opportunity for you runners not only to get involved, but to really go out and support the YMCA. They've been doing this for so many years. Again, kind of go through a list of some of the programs. I saw the list, and I couldn't calculate it all the things you guys are involved in.
Sure. You know, with the YMCA, there's kids there that are 6 months old, all the way through to one of my favorite members who's 94. And she painted my office when she was 91. She wouldn't let me help.
Really?
Gina Burns. And so I'll tell you what, she, along with all the members there at the YMCA, there's just a wide variety of ways to get involved. May it be swim lessons or youth sports or child care or group exercise classes. We have a youth center, a climbing gym, a fitness center. I mean, there's so many things that folks can get involved with. And I think that really it's important that at the YMCA that we're just fostering fellowship. I'm hoping folks that can meet others and get connected with like-minded folks and give back to their community. YMCA is a great place to do that.
Brad, God bless you, pal. Hey, keep us informed of what you're doing down there. Anything we can do to help you, okay?
Thank you so much.
We'll see you tomorrow.